And a very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and my special guest is the Minister of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, the Honorable Davidson Ishmael. Minister, thank you so much for joining us for the very first time.
Thank you so much for having me for the very first time.
You're
Hopefully
most
it won't be the
welcome.
last.
I hope so too. Now, you have a very extensive portfolio as a first-timer into politics, and you also have a lot of ongoing projects. One of those getting a lot of attention is the Digital National ID Card project, which would see Barbadians using a single modern piece of identification. Just for the sake of our viewers and listeners, I want you to explain what this project is all about.
Well, Lisa, thank you for the question. Most of your viewers and all Barbadians would appreciate the fact that our existing ID card has its limitations. The existing ID card from a security point of view is not as robust as we would like it to be. I've heard many a person who has given the account of going overseas, going outside of Barbados and being asked to present a form of ID to authenticate who they are. It could be at an airport or it could be at another establishment, wherever they may be. And only to be met with resistance and hesitation, because unfortunately the ID card is simply a piece of card with laminate over it. It's a laminated piece of card and a photo stuck inside. I've also had many persons who would have shared with me the challenges that they had when that laminated piece started to peel and unfold. We know they catch the dog ears, as they say. So unfortunately, that card has reached has actually gone past its useful life. So we thought it necessary for us to bring a new card to the system, and while we're doing that, we're seeing how we can then make the card even more useful to the average citizen. So the National Trident ID card is going to give persons two components and two systems all in one. One is going to serve as your form of ID that can be used to authenticate who you are. If you're going into a financial institution, if you're going into any place of business and you need to produce ID to say that I am Davidson Ishmael, this card will be used as it normally is now to authenticate your identity. The second and more exciting part of it is that we're now adding to this a digital component. The digital component is going to allow us to be able to use our card now as a tool for commerce. So it will allow you to be able to utilize the card online, access mobile services, digital services, be able to do to make purchases, etc., through your digital ID card. And of course, when it comes to accessing government services, whether it be national insurance benefits or any of those types of benefits that come from government, come from the state to the citizen, those cards can be used to access those services as well. So we're very excited because this new card opens up a whole new world of potential and opportunity to the average citizen in Barbados. So that's what it is in a nutshell.
Minister, you would have given a commitment that this card would have been launched in the first quarter. We're now in April, which means the deadline has passed. Why hasn't the card been launched?
Well, the truth of the matter is that things like this, projects like this, can oftentimes not go according to plan. And with all the best of intentions and all the best will, sometimes things do not meet the timeline that you have envisioned. I think that we had a very ambitious target for the first quarter of 2022, and we're still working assiduously to deliver on that commitment. We're just at this point in time making sure that we do it right. The key here is that the digital side of the national ID card, the Trident ID card, it is going to require that we focus on one aspect called cybersecurity. Now, because it is a piece of digital technology, it means that it can be open to, it can be victim to, or vulnerable to cybersecurity threats and attacks. Therefore, if we are putting this card in the hands of all of our citizens, we need to be sure that the security behind it is as robust as it needs to be so that we can protect and safeguard our people. So it is a case where we are being very cautious with how we go forward with launching the card. The old people say if you rush the brush, you'll spill the paint. And we don't want to rush the brush and we don't want to spill this paint, because it's very critical for us to ensure that our people, when they receive the card, that they can feel that it has gone through all the rigors of testing to ensure that this solution is as safe as possible and that their identity is safe and that their transactions are safe As I said, using this card through e-commerce platform, using it in a digital way, using it in a digital formats, it opens that person to online threats. The same threats that you have when you're doing the transaction on your computer. So we have to be very, very careful that when we launch this, that we have put all of the resources behind it. We have checked all of the boxes. We have crossed all of the T's and dotted all of the I's so that this product, when it is in your hands, in your wallet, in your purse, it is safe and secure. So any delays that are happening right now is because we're ensuring that we take it through a rigorous process of testing so that when it is launched properly.
Do you have another timeline in mind?
I wouldn't say at this point in time, as I said, we're still working very, very, very assiduously to ensure that we can try to get it within this April period before the end of the month. We do expect that because of some of the current assessments that are being taken place and evaluations that are being taken place, we're bringing on additional resources to assist us in that process. We do believe that there may be a slight delay, but we're still working assiduously to see if we can get that within that April window that we have indicated.
And as you would have mentioned, the whole issue of persons being concerned about access to their personal information.
Of course.
That's what you're trying to work out.
That is correct. Because remember, the card is being worked on in a collaboration with the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. In fact, really and truly, they are the authorized entity in Barbados when it comes to the issuance of ID cards.
Yeah.
So we, as MIS, are providing the framework and the solution that is going to be used by EBC to deliver this card to our citizens. So we need to ensure that from the perspective of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that we do not allow that information that has always been guarded, jealously guarded. We don't allow that information to fall into a state where it can potentially be used, corrupted, stolen in any way, shape, or form. So we're working collaboratively between the EBC and MIS to ensure that we check all the boxes and that this product, when it released, is as safe as possible.
And it's also envisioned that the digital ID card would be used as a travel document.
That is correct. That is correct. That is one of the key things. In fact, I would say that that has also contributed to some of the delays that we've experienced thus far. Because in order for us to have the approval of the entities that would allow for it to be used as a travel card, certain specifications have to be met. Now, I would say this: when the card was first presented to us and the format for the card was first approved, tentatively approved, unfortunately, the size of the photograph was smaller than the requirements for approval by the entity which approves for travel documents. So we had to rework the entire format. So things like this, as you go through a process and as you go with a project, again, you go into it, of course, with a timeline in mind. But then you encounter these types of scenarios that you have to adjust to. And I think everybody in Barbados would appreciate that and understand that as you go through projects and as you go through anything that you're doing, unexpected curves do come, and you have to be able to roll with those punches and adjust accordingly. I can say that we have already surpassed that hurdle, and we are now in the stage where we are satisfied that we will be able to use this ID card as a travel document.
Okay, so going back to the whole issue of cybersecurity, what is being done to strengthen the IT systems across the government, given the recent issue that we had?
Yeah, thank you. We've had a cybersecurity incident just a few weeks ago, and it has just underscored for us a lot of what we have already known, that we have to protect our systems. I'm thankful that we have already done, the ministry has already put a lot of systems in place, a lot of controls in place, a lot of technology is already in place that allowed us to be able to safely wrestle that threat to the ground. From then, we have undertook a thorough investigation of what would have happened in that particular incident, and we've already started to put additional measures in place. One of the first things that we are doing from the cybersecurity perspective is that we have just signed on an agreement where we are going to have an assessment by one of the world's leading cybersecurity firms. They're actually going to work with the government of Barbados and MIST in particular to do a complete overview and review of our cybersecurity framework here in Barbados. So they're going to look at every single detail of our systems, the back end, the policy frameworks, the systems that we have in place, which is the technology, the everything. They're going to look at the entire cybersecurity framework and infrastructure to see where we are right now, what is the state of play. And then they're going to make recommendations to us as to how we can build that out make it stronger, how we can enhance it, and how we can make it more robust and resilient, especially given that threats are ongoing in the cybersecurity world. You can defend your system today, but you have to have a continuous program of defense because new threats come out on a daily basis. So that's one of the first things that we're doing. In addition to that, and what we've already been doing is that we've been purchasing the latest software technologies. We've been trying to ensure that we can protect as many of our government devices as possible. So within the Ministry of MIST, we have already undertaken to do a full assessment or a mapping exercise so that we can identify every single device that's connected to the government's network. Every single device, every tablet that is used, every laptop, every desktop computer, everything that is used as plugged into our network, we are currently going through a process of mapping that out so we can identify it. And it's a very simple saying, you don't know what to protect if you don't know it's there. So we have to go through this exercise. It's a painstaking exercise because there's so many government departments, so many government personnel who have various devices from phones back up. So it's going to take us some time to go through that, but we believe that at the end of that exercise, we will have a very clear idea as to what it is that we're protecting, and then we'll be able to apply all of the various security protocols to cover each and every device that we have in government.
On the day that that threat occurred, you were not in a position then to say what happened. Can you share what happened?
I will say that it was basically a cybersecurity incident, and these things happen on a daily basis. We had a ransomware attack, and a ransomware, as everyone knows, is where a malware, where a threat comes into a system and it goes through the system looking to see vulnerabilities. So wherever it finds vulnerabilities, it goes in and it tries to trap some information. It tries to lock that system down. And the only way that you'll be able to access that system is if you pay some sort of ransom. I would say we have not gone to that extent, or this threat did not go to that extent, because our systems began to fly into gear, including our personnel. And I really want to applaud the team at MIST and the cybersecurity team as well. We have a cybersecurity working group, in fact, and members of that cybersecurity working group were immediately activated to confine and to contain that threat, minimize it so that its effects and its impact was not as great or significant as it potentially could be. I would say that, vulnerabilities exist in a system where an individual clicks on something that they shouldn't click on, right? It may not be that your system is not robust. It may just be a user-generated issue. It could also be that your virus database is not updated. So you may have, I'm running a computer here that has the latest and updated antivirus software. You're running a computer next to me, but yours isn't updated. So if somebody in some part of the world sends a virus your way, it's going to find its way into the system and it may come through your computer, it may hit mine. So we recognize and we understand and appreciate that cybersecurity threats are par for the course. Once you're connected to the internet, once you're connected to any network whatsoever, these things will happen. Our job is to try to minimize their impact and to ensure that we build a system that is strong enough, that we have a defense. And if we don't have, and even in the cases where something still gets through, that we can then offensively take action and reduce it.
I know you're talking about building our capacity, safeguarding us from threats, but were you satisfied with the backup systems that we do have in place at the moment?
Yeah, I would say that I'm pretty satisfied with the backup systems that we have in place right now. Not only from the perspective of our personnel, because our personnel are actually the ones who drive the backup process, but we also have a lot of automated features and a robust backup system at MIST that takes care of all of government. And I will say to you that is extremely secure. People talk about the crown jewels in the IT world. We also have crown jewels, and they're extremely protected, very, very secure. So the people of Barbados have nothing to fear relative to their database being kept and secured, and the databases that our government manages, they're very secure, robustly protected. And I think that the last incident showed us that we do have a good and robust team that can help us to safeguard and to stave off any attacks.
Many Barbadians are still complaining that they want to do more business with government departments and agencies online, but they're still not in a position to do that just yet. What is your ministry doing to facilitate this process?
That is an ongoing program. The thing is ease of doing business. And that's not only from the perspective of the business places in Barbados being able to do transactions easily, but it's also the average citizen who would want to be able to interact and do business with our government. We have already made significant strides,
Yes.
being able to renew your licenses online, various licenses as well, not only just your driver's license, but we've moved towards vendor's license, liquor licenses, etc. And there's a whole scope of other government services that we're seeking to bring online. The truth of the matter is that we're working towards what we call a single window where all of those various government services, or the vast majority of government services, will be able to be found online, and our citizens will be able to therefore activate those services, utilize those services in the comfort of their own home. A project like that is significant. Being able to take departments and units and agencies and ministries and pull them all into one place on one platform, that is a challenging task. I would say to you that we are well underway in terms of our programming and developing the software that would allow us to introduce that to the general public. We're well on the way in that regard, and I believe that in the very near future we'll be able to release that. But at this point in time, that is something that is still going through a heavy amount of testing to ensure that once we launch it, that we can have those services being transacted in a seamless way. So there will be more services that are being brought online. The people of our citizens, the people of Barbados, have no need to fear. We want to bring our government into the 21st century. I have said it. I think I said it on the floor of Parliament. I envision a Barbados where every citizen can lay down in their bed, in their boxers or their shorts or their whatever they have on, their nighties, and they can transact business with their government. They can pay their land taxes, etc., etc. All these are things that we already have in place, and we're hoping that we can bring a lot more of those government services online in the very near future.
Let's look at micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. What is being done to help these businesses meet both local and export demand?
A lot has been done already, and a lot continues to be done. Micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises have a significant challenge when it comes to accessing credit. Not only that, but the secondary problem that they have is that many of them don't have the capacity. If they wanted to scale their operations, they're limited, whether it be from a human resource point of view, from a technological point of view, from an infrastructural point of view. They have limitations because of their size. They're micro, small, and medium size. So the government of Barbados has put some things in place. I will start on the financing side. The trust loans. The trust loans, while it's not a part of the MIST operation or the MIST engagement, it is something that I have to point to and I have to laud, because it is an initiative that actually trusts the people of Barbados, small businesses, micro businesses that have just a dream, a nice product, a nice service, and they are able to access through the Trust Loan Fund $5,000 to invest in their business and to grow their capacity. After that, they can then go and get another $5,000 once they've paid it back. So that's access to $10,000 in capital, in the easiest of ways to access it. So that's the access to financing side of it. In terms of building capacity, though, our organization, the BIDC, which is the state-owned enterprise that falls on the MIST, on the industry side of things, the BIDC has been doing a tremendous amount of work for many years in building the capacity of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Many companies have approached the BIDC and they have been working with business development officers, helping them to be able to strategize their markets, strategize their products and services, streamline their operations. They go there and they get that ready access to information and support. And they've also been able to receive financial support through the BIDC, what we call our Special Technical Assistance Program as well. So we've been working with them and graduating persons who come through our door from just a concept, just an idea, just a good product, through to a very strong and robust business, and then we are moving them towards now the avenue of exports. So we've been building capacity with our small, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises all along the while, and we're now orienting the BIDC towards an export thrust, and that has been signaled even in the change of name. The BIDC, as people have known it, Barbados Investment Development Corporation, is undergoing a complete overhaul of its look, its feel, and its strategy. and it's now going to be called Export Barbados. And very soon we'll be taking that to Parliament so that can be changed from a legislative point of view. But we're at this point in time already out there trading, and we're already doing what we have to do because we want the message to be communicated to the market that we are seeking to drive our exports. We're seeking to go double digits within this financial year, double digit growth in our level of exports. So to do that, we have to drive it. And to drive it, we're going to have the BADC Export Barbados leading from the front. I would say here, as a part of the facilitation of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, is that we have an Export Academy where persons come in. They're already doing quite well from a local perspective, but we must keep in mind, we have about 300,000 people in Barbados. We have 100,000 households in that 300,000. That's a very small market when you compare it to the North America, Canada, UK. It's a very small market. So you will not be able, as a micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise, to reach your fullest potential if you're only trying to satisfy local demand. So we're seeking to get those businesses through our Export Academy to the stage where they can then export their product to the region and then even beyond the region. And while I say that, yes, the thrust is towards export, but I want to put a plug here for buy local from the perspective of our manufacturing industries. We have so many manufacturers on island, and we too support them. And we want to encourage every citizen of Barbados, buy local, support your local producers. I'm not just talking about from the food perspective, but at the BADC in Pelican Village and our other industrial estates, we have several micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises and entrepreneurs who really and truly can benefit from many of our citizens going and purchasing their goods and services. So whilst we're going to drive them towards exports and we want to get them into larger markets in the region and beyond, we want to encourage our local citizens to make an effort, be intentional about supporting local businesses as well. The person who's making garments, who's making batik wear, who is making jewelry, handcrafted jewelry out of all sorts of materials, the person who's making mahogany products, etc., purchase them, support local, buy local.
I want to come back to the manufacturing sector in just a minute, but I want to stick on the whole export drive that we're on. Are our products up to the standard from what you've seen? Export ready?
In many cases, they are. We have quite a few companies in Barbados that are already exporting. Some companies are in 15 different markets. Some are in 21 different markets. Some of our manufacturers are in 21 different markets. So yes, we do have products in Barbados and services that are already at the standard that is required for exports. And not only at the standard, but they're highly desired too. We have huge demand for a lot of products. I don't have to tell you about the pepper sauces and the demand for that. I don't have to tell you about those condiments in general. And the rum, you understand? I mean, rum has been leading as an industry in Barbados for years. It's the leading export that we have, actually. But you might not have known this, but fats and oils are now the second highest export in Barbados. So we're talking the various, the mellow creams and the different things like that. So those things there's a huge demand for Barbadian product and services outside of Barbados. So what we're doing is for those companies that are not at that level yet, and as the word that you use is standard, we're going to help bring them up to standard. This is where the Export Academy comes in and all the various training and capacity building avenues that we have through the BADC and through our industry unit and through the ministry itself. We're going to see how we can work with them. And there's so many different agencies out there. The Barbados Manufacturers Association is working directly with manufacturers, and we're working directly with them to support the industry and to support manufacturing sectors all throughout.
A major issue over the years for the manufacturing sector has been high operational costs. There's no way of getting around it. Is government offering any level of support to the manufacturers, or are there plans to?
Yes, when it comes to operating costs, we understand the bugbear there because having high operating costs means that you have to sell your product at higher prices, and in an effort, and the reverse is true. If you are able to reduce your operating costs, and that means you will be able to reduce your prices and therefore make your product more competitive. The government is seeking to assist. We are in the process right now of building out several shared use facilities. We call these shared use facilities because they're spaces where persons will be able to collaborate and utilize government infrastructure, government placed equipment and infrastructure that would allow the person then to be able to reduce their overhead costs. So for example, we have many manufacturers that are in agro processing, taking mangoes and turning it into mango juice and other juices, etc. A person may be able to, in their home, in their kitchen, produce, let's say, 100 bottles of that per week, right? We're going to create, and the process has already started, an International Food Science Center, where persons will be able to bring their ideas, bring their formulation, for example, of that same mango juice, and they can then use the facilities at the International Food Science Center or at the shared use facility that is specifically used for agro processing in particular, and they can use the equipment that is there, state-of-the-art technology, state-of-the-art equipment, and therefore build out their capacity almost instantly. And they're using it in a shared way. So one person comes in making their juices today, they use the space for, let's say, 2 days, they develop their product, and that person's 100 bottles per week can turn into 1,000 bottles per week by using the technology and the space that's afforded them through the Ministry of Industry, Science, Innovation, Science and Technology. So that's one of the ways that we're going to be supporting manufacturers and helping them to build their capacity. In addition to that, and on the finance side again, we're in the process of building out what is called the Export Bank of Barbados. Right? The Export Bank would allow persons to have access to financing when it comes to purchase orders. So once again, person is making 100 juices in their kitchen at home, in the back of their house. They build on a little area where they can do that, no problem. They go overseas and somebody likes their product in Trinidad, and the person says, well, I would like 10,000 of those bottles by the end of next month if you can. That person doesn't have the capacity to do 10,000 of those bottles of mango juice. So what they're going to do then is that they can approach the Export Bank. The Export Bank can then fund the support that they need for that purchase order. And we will just take the purchase order and hold the funds. And when that company in Trinidad pays them, they pay us directly. And we therefore are able to then support that person and being able to meet the need and meet the demand for their product elsewhere. So the Export Bank is a tremendous concept. I think that is going to be a game changer for a lot of our current and local industries and manufacturers, because it will give them access to ready cash that will allow them to be able to fulfill any large purchase orders that they have outside of Barbados relative to exports.
So it's facilitating more or less scaling up of a cottage industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Minister, you're also offering support to mechanics with the Mechanics Bay. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Backstory. We know across many villages in Barbados, we have what we call roadside mechanics. Mechanics who would be right in the middle of a residential area, and that person then would undertake to ply their trade of fixing or repairing cars. We know that there can be some challenges with this, right? You get several cars parked along the road. You have, the oils and the different things like that. You have the noises. Sometimes if they're working late into the night,
it's unsightly.
It could be problematic. So we as a government have sought to see how we can create a solution to this problem. And one such solution is the establishment of Mechanics Bay. The Mechanics Bay basically is an area where there will be several bays, several open lots that would allow for a mechanic to drive their vehicle into one of those lots, one of those spaces, work on his or her vehicle during the course of whatever period, a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever time period is required for that work to be done. And then that vehicle is driven right back out, repaired, and the person, the satisfied customer is there. So it will move the roadside mechanic or the village mechanic into a commercial space that allows him or her not only to be able to take their business away from the residential community, but also to gain access to state-of-the-art equipment and technology again. So we're talking from lifts, hoists, all the different things. So the roadside mechanic who doesn't have some of the state-of-the-art technology can actually benefit doubly. So one, we pull them out of the residential areas, therefore we reduce that problematic situation, but we also give them access to the latest of technologies, the latest of equipment, latest of tools that can help them to be even more efficient and effective in their job. So the mechanics bay, as we have currently earmarked, is already under construction. It's going to be in the Grisette's industrial estate, and that is under construction as we speak, and we're expecting that during the course, the latter part of this year, that should be finished. Latter part of this year into beginning of next year, depending on how things go, we should have that fully established, and then we're going to have a scheduling system that would allow persons to roll in and out of the mechanics bay. So you wouldn't take up a spot for several months. You're going to just roll in there, utilize the equipment, utilize the space, do your work. Vehicle goes right back out to the happy and satisfied customer, and we want to encourage that. This is the first, so we call it a pilot. But we have earmarked other spaces across the island where we want to or envision putting some additional mechanics bays as well. And those mechanics bays all across the island then should help us to move a lot of this roadside mechanic work into a commercial space that benefits them as the mechanics and benefits the rest of the society as well.
Have you received any feedback about this plan?
Yeah, in my constituency, I've spoken to many a mechanic who are plying their trade within the confines of the residential space, and many of them like the idea, like the sound of it, they like the concept. It's for us now to actually put it out there so that they can see how it works. A lot of persons just wait to see how things work before they actually try to take part in it. But from a conceptual perspective, we've gotten some very good reviews and very good feedback. People do believe that it can solve the problem. It's just how we now implement it and how we can encourage them to be a part of it.
All right, Minister, still a lot more to discuss, but we'll take a break here. Stay with us. You're watching One on One.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ingrid Burrows, and I'm going to give you some tips on managing your hypertension. The first thing you should do is to decrease your salt intake. You should keep your salt intake to less than 1 gram a day. This is equivalent to about 1 teaspoon of salt every day. Another thing you should do is to ensure that you're getting enough physical activity. You should aim for 150 minutes of aerobic exercise every week of moderate intensity. For example, brisk walking, light jogging, swimming, or running. This equates to half an hour of exercise 5 days a week. You also want to increase your intake of fresh fruits and vegetables. It is advised that you eat 5 servings of fruit and vegetable every day. And the last thing you can do is monitor your blood pressure at home with a digital machine. This is very important as some patients have elevated blood pressures while in the doctor's office while having normal blood pressures at home. This is called white coat hypertension. Also, if you're taking medication for your hypertension and you notice any changes in your blood pressure, you can call your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications to suit. If your readings are too high or too low, you can inform your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications appropriately. I hope these tips have been helpful.
Hi, my name is Dr. Ronette Boyne, and we in the Ministry of Agriculture are very concerned about the African swine fever. So what is ASF and how is it spread? ASF is a viral disease that can severely impact our local pig industry on an economic level. ASF can be spread in 2 main ways. Directly, that is contact between healthy, sick, and dead animals, or even tissue which comes from an infected animal. Or indirectly, like garbage containing infected meat, or even eating swill. They can also get it from contaminated premises, vehicles, equipment, tools, or anything that came into contact with an infected animal. Clinical signs of this disease include reddening of the skin on the tips of the ears, snout, tail, extremities, chest, and abdomen, heavy discharge from the eyes or nose, loss of appetite and weakness, vomiting, high temperature, diarrhea, respiratory distress, or an increase in mortality. If you suspect ASF on your farm, notify the veterinary services as soon as possible by calling 535-0220 or 0221 or 0226. These simple measures are your best protection. Protect your investment. Help us keep African swine fever out of Barbados.
Welcome back. We're speaking to the Minister of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, the Honorable Davidson Ishmael. Minister, now your ministry, in conjunction with Export Barbados, you recently hosted a high-level delegation from Guyana to discuss the establishment of a gold exchange. Explain what this would mean for Barbados and indeed Guyana.
Yeah, a few weeks before that, our Prime Minister would have taken a delegation, a very large delegation, including Export Barbados as well, to Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at that point in time, what was signed was an agreement called the St. Barnabas Accord. And the St. Barnabas Accord really and truly just spoke to the mutual partnership between Guyana and Barbados. We know that there are several industries that are currently booming in Guyana. And we know that we in Barbados can benefit from being able to have access to those industries because we have a lot of capacity here from the human resources perspective. We have very skilled talent. We have very knowledgeable human resources. So we're trying to see how we can link the capacity opportunities in Guyana with the capacity that we have here in Barbados. Now, as it relates specifically to the gold exchange, Guyana has a very mature gold industry. They mine it, they produce it, they retail it. It is a great industry. It has benefited them quite well over the years. Barbados does not have that mature of a gold industry here. So we're looking to see how we can leverage the relationship between the two entities, Barbados and Guyana. What we're going to do here is that we're going to establish a location where Guyanese gold and gold products can be sold. We're going to give them access to our market for sale because we have a port of entry here where cruise ships land, etc. Guyana doesn't benefit from that. So we have a lot of tourists that will be passing through, and therefore Guyanese gold can have the opportunity, or Guyanese gold producers can have the opportunity to increase their sale of their products even by placing it here in Barbados. Now, the second part of it is that we want to be able to have an exchange of technical knowledge. Because our designers, the persons who fabricate gold here in Barbados, are not as experienced as those that are in Guyana. So we're hoping that this St. Barnabas Accord, and we're working towards having those Guyanese producers, those Guyanese manufacturers of gold, come across to Barbados and to train us, to train our designers, to train our local designers in how to produce gold and produce gold well. So it's really just a way that we can cross-pollinate. We can use their experience and leverage it to help our industry to be built out, and they can use our space and our location to be able to further their own sales of their goods within the gold market. So that's the one part of it, but there's so many different aspects to the St. Barnabas Accord that the partnership and the collaboration between these two countries is going to bring tremendous benefits to the people of Barbados and the people of Guyana.
Regarding the gold exchange, can you say how soon you expect that to be up and functioning?
Well, we're working assiduously to ensure that we can get that moving very quickly. We've already identified 2 locations where we're going to have this gold exchange market, and we're in the process of doing some feasibility studies on both of the locations that will need some renovations, etc. So we're undertaking that assessment and evaluation as we speak. On the other side of that, as a parallel track, we're in the process of doing assessments relative to our own demand of gold, and we're assessing our market and the market potential as well. So these things are all being done at the same time. We have some timelines during the month of April to have some items delivered to our counterparts in Guyana, and they too have to get some information to us as well. So April is going to be a very busy month for us in terms of advancing this forward. So we'll be able to say by the end of April, we should see some framework being built out relative to the Guyana gold market.
Let's look at the telecommunications market. During the recent estimates debate, it was revealed that a third player is supposed to be entering our market. How soon do you see that happening?
They're well on the way in terms of being introduced to the market. I wouldn't be able to say from their perspective because I'm not involved in their business. I wouldn't be able to say exactly when they seek to launch, but I can say that they have already gone through a lot of the process that is required for them to be able to launch. I would want to say that a high degree of interconnectivity is taking place right now between the 3 players, and our market is open, so it wouldn't just be 3 players. Eventually more players will come into the market, and we have to embrace that.
And we've seen more
before.
Yes.
We had other companies that were here, and some of them were absorbed into the larger players, and some of them would have maybe just become a little bit more dormant. You never know, they may come back again. So we're open market, we're very open for business. So we encourage as many telecom companies as possible to come into Barbados because we understand that healthy competition is good. It gives persons options, it gives them a choice,
And better pricing.
And better pricing as well. Competition is very useful. So we've gone from a place in Barbados where we only had one telecom company that dominated and was a monopoly, and we've now seen two as the large players. We've seen a couple more along the way, and we have this third one that has expressed strong interest and are in the process of getting themselves ready so that they can launch.
So we're expecting to see the long-awaited number portability happening.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
soon?
We have a timeline on June 2022. So by June of this year, all things being equal and everything going according to plan, we should have number portability, local number portability legislation in place. I can say to you that significant work is being done on the back end to ensure that that is realized. It is not as simple as just saying, and let me explain number portability. A person having one telephone number, unfortunately, because of the way things are structured now, if they wanted to end their service with one carrier and go over to the other carrier,
They have to get a
they
new
have to
number.
get a brand new number.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be able, but then people won't be able to find you, or you have to go through an arduous task of trying to tell people what your new number is, etc.
And it's disruptive for businesses, especially.
It is significantly problematic. So what we're looking to do through, and it's not just us, but across the region, we're trying to solve this number portability problem. So we want to, and we envision that by June 2022, that persons will be able to go from carrier A to carrier B and have the exact same number. From a technical perspective, there has to be a lot of work happening on the back end. And that is what's happening right now. There's interconnectivity that needs to take place between all of the carriers so that they're on one network that allows for that smooth exchange of numbers across carrier A to carrier B to carrier C, so that the number goes with the person wherever they go. So technologically, that is an exercise right now that is undergoing significant testing. And the carriers, the various telecom companies have already gone through all of the various agreements that are necessary. So they are on board with it, and they are working together to ensure that this is realized come June 2022.
This is something that Barbadians have wanted for a very long time,
It is.
ministers. So June and another 2 months, Bajans will hold you to that.
No problem at all. No
All
problem
right.
at all. If there are any challenges with it, I will be sure to come back and speak to the public.
I'm sure they'll be blowing up your social media. Now, there are plans to drive innovation. Let's look at the whole concept of innovation. What is your ministry doing?
Yeah, innovation is absolutely critical. Innovation is really just finding solutions to problems. People have been bandying about the term for a long time. Is
And
one
it's
of those-
broad.
It's
a
very
broad question that I
broad.
did ask.
Yeah, it's very broad, but it's really just problem solving. And if you can creatively find a solution to problems that exist and you can make that commercially viable, then you've just innovated. So the Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology is definitely seeking to drive innovation within our country. We're trying to do it at the school level, at the level of the schools, from primary school all the way to tertiary. And we have a number of initiatives and programs to help us do that. One of the first things I will say is that we've just had some conversations and the ink really hasn't dried yet, but we're right now in the process of building out what is called an innovation challenge, where we're going to throw, and I think the BIDC and the Export Barbados has done a number of innovation challenges at the national level. But we're doing one now that is going to target the schools, our primary, secondary, tertiary schools, and it's going to allow them the opportunity to come up with students and teachers to come up with solutions to problems. So if we have a problem in our society, a problem in our communities, how can we solve this problem creatively? We are going to throw those challenges out, and we're going to let the people of Barbados be the ones to drive the process of innovation for us. In addition to that, we have the innovation reward, and this is going to be an opportunity for us to actually recognize and highlight and underscore persons within the school system that are innovative. And that would be students, teachers, administrators, doesn't matter who it is. If you in your school setting are finding creative solutions to problems, then we will recognize you for so doing. And that innovation reward is coming on stream very soon as well. We're going to put even greater emphasis behind that. Another way that we're supporting innovation within our school system is relative to our summer camps. We have science summer camps that we've been doing before. Because of COVID, unfortunately, we had to take a break from it. We had to restructure it. But we're in this year, we're seeking to ensure that we do that in a robust way. All things being considered, COVID permitting, we should be able to run that in the most feasible of ways. And the science camps, once again, allow us to link students with scientists, bring them into that environment so that they can become exposed to science. They can become exposed to a varying range of sciences so that they can build that interest, they can build that desire and that like for the field of science. And hopefully from there, that also spurs and drives innovation as well. I want to underscore the need for innovation. Innovation is absolutely critical to our survival. At the end of the day, if persons have a choice of many products and we're in a global market, as we are right now, they will choose products that are very innovative. They will lean towards products that are very innovative, products that solve several of their problems. So it won't just be to produce product A that solves one problem, but we have to get our people to a place where when we produce a product, it solves several problems all at once. And that's what we call value add. So that a person purchasing it, they feel like they're getting additional value, even though that they may pay the same price as another product that's on the shelf. So innovation is absolutely critical in helping us to have competitive advantage built into our markets, built into our manufacturing process, built into our industries. And we want to support that. So we're not starting at the level of the individual companies. We're starting at the level of our 4-year-olds and coming up. The more we help them to be innovative as young people, the more we help their minds to be oriented towards solving problems, being creative, coming up with solutions that meet several needs all at once, then we know that we will have a very bright and stable future with the youth that are coming up, innovating and becoming the business leaders of tomorrow.
And of course, you have the buy-in of education officials.
Of course, yeah, because even on the education side, they have already started quite a bit of robotics classes, etc. So our camps will actually supplement and augment and add to what the Ministry of Education is doing as well. As you can see, it's going to require a whole of government approach. Innovation is going to be required in agriculture. Innovation is going to be required in Ministry of Transport and Works. Innovation is going to be required in every facet of our lives and our existence, not only from the perspective of businesses, commerce, but innovation is required even in government. How we do government services, how we provide government services going forward. We need to be more innovative as a government, and that's what we're going to drive from our young people all the way through the system.
There's no question that the public service is in need of being modernized. What is your ministry doing? After all, you're responsible for transforming the public service as well.
Yeah, we have an ongoing project. It's called Component 1, which is the Public Sector Modernization Program. Right? And it really is exactly that, seeing how we can move the public service to a place where it is far more modern, far more efficient, and far more effective. Ultimately, the delivery of service is something that we are focusing on. We do not want to have a situation where the average citizen is interacting with the government and has to go through an arduous process, a lengthy process, a difficult process to have basic things done. You would have seen things like, for example, persons having to wait an extremely long time to get a police certificate of character. Mm-hmm. You would have seen things like persons having to wait an extremely long time to get their licenses renewed, etc. So all of those are things that we have under this component have been seeking to modernize. Now, ultimately, it comes down to some simple things like the changing of systems. You have, in many of our government departments, you still have very manual processes. Persons are still writing up things with their hand and doing things like that. It takes time.
So digitization.
It takes time, and therefore we need to see how we can move that to a more technological and digital format and frame. So that is one of the key things that we're doing. How can we move from a very analog process to a very digital process, thereby increasing efficiency and reducing time? One of the key things, as you rightly said, is digitization. One of the key components of this. And the government of Barbados has already undertaken to digitize all of government's records. All of government's paper is going to be digitized. And we've done a significant job of that. Over 1 million records have already been digitized through the Ministry of Innovation, Industry, Science and Technology. We actually have a digitization center that was established in 2021 and currently runs 2 shifts per day. And we are in the process every single day of reviewing and accepting and reviewing the documents that come from various government departments. And we're in the process of digitizing those records. It is a lengthy process because, of course, depending on the state of a document, you may have to do some rebuilding wherever necessary. For sure, there has to be a cleaning process. All files that come through, they come through MIST and come through the digitization center, have to be thoroughly sanitized and cleaned so that then they can be used then in the various equipment that we have for scanning, the scanners. And then we have a thorough review and quality assurance process that takes place thereafter to ensure that what was scanned is what we see. Now, the ultimate goal of all of this is to ensure that that information is easily accessible and retrievable. So it helps us from the perspective of preserving that data, because when these files become too old, they're going to fall apart eventually. But when you have a digital copy of it, you have a digital record of it, then you have that forever, right? So that's one benefit. But of course, secondly, is to help us to be able to retrieve that data when we need it at a moment's notice. Think, for example, of the hospital.
Yes.
Many of our citizens, in fact, I would say almost all of our citizens have some record at the QEH. When a person goes to clinic, when a person goes to QEH and they see Dr. A today, they may go the next time and see Dr. B. Dr. B has to retrieve the file, retrieve that person's document. We need to find a system that allows us to be able to have that data digitized so that that person's file can be seen anywhere they go. And not just at the QH, but maybe even when they go to their private doctor, when they go to the polyclinic, that the person can easily pull it up instead of having to request a file, which then sometimes takes days and sometimes takes weeks. And then you have the unfortunate instances of files going missing. So we want to be able to, this is what digitization and public sector modernization is all about. Being able to have, in addition to the digitization of files, to have a document records management system that would allow for easy retrieval of those files so we can use it, manipulate it, and employ it where it is needed most. So I can pull my data from one agency and share it with another agency. And this is where modernization comes in as well. Because when I go to BRA to do one transaction, but then I have to go to NIS to do another transaction, I shouldn't have to take the same documents to each agency. I should be able to there should be a connection between government that allows every agency in government access to that database. And they can pull my records, they can pull my information, they can pull what I have submitted, and I don't have to be repeating myself 3, 4, 5 different places to get one transaction done. So overall, we're seeking to see how we can bring the public service into the 21st century so that our delivery of service is at the level that it's supposed to be, as the highest standard, so that our Bajan populace can feel more comfortable. They can feel the ease of doing business when they're interacting with their government.
Which leads me to my final question. As I started the program, I said you have quite a bit on your shoulders. What is your vision for your ministry?
Well, overall, is to really make sure that we are providing the kind of service that we need to provide to the people of Barbados and delivering on that. I see this ministry as a ministry that is going to lead the digital revolution in Barbados and also lead the industrial revolution in Barbados. On the industry side first, we have to build up brand new sectors, brand new industries, brand new manufacturing sectors and avenues. So it is not what we did before that we can rely on now, but we have to see what is now trending. And this is where renewable energies come in, green technologies, from photovoltaics through to wind technology, wave technology. We have to embrace what is happening in the world, and we have to see how we can then build new industries, build new manufacturing sectors here in Barbados that can allow us to thrive as a country. Our people have tremendous capacity, they have tremendous skill. We need to give them avenues where they can explore and exploit that skill and those interests. So we as a government, we as this ministry, we want to lead the charge relative to the industrial revolution. We're going to go there. We're going to find those industries that are applicable to Barbados, that can be applicable to Barbados. We're going to research them. We're going to build them out in Barbados. We're going to facilitate training wherever possible so we can bring people who have a desire to explore those avenues. We're going to bring them in, train them, and we're going to give them the ready access to the industries that we build out. So we're leading the industrial revolution. On the digital side, we're leading the digital revolution as well. We want to modernize our public service. And even as we modernize the public service, we know that's going to support the private sector. A more modern public service allows our private sector entities to be able to do business easier. And when they do business easier, it helps them to be more efficient, helps them to be more effective in what they do. And therefore, everybody benefits. The public sector benefits, the private sector benefits, the citizen benefits, the customer benefits. Everybody benefits with a public service that is more efficient and more modernized. So that is the vision. The vision ultimately is to ensure that through those two avenues, industrial side of the revolution, the digital side of the revolution, that we are ensuring that we create a framework that supports Barbados's advancement as a people and as a country.
Minister, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. That was the Minister of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, the Honorable Davidson Ishmael. I'm Lisa Lord. This was One on One. Thank you so much for joining. Good evening.